I still remember the exact words because they split my life into two halves. Don't go home. At first, I thought I'd misheard. The airport terminal buzzed around me. Rolling suitcases, crying babies, flight announcements echoing through the glass corridors. But those 3 words drowned out everything else. My phone vibrated again. Marta, please. Whatever you do, don't go home. Call me when you're somewhere safe. My housekeeper had never used the word please. She had worked for us for nearly 6 years. In all that time, she'd never sent a single text that wasn't about groceries, laundry, or asking whether she should polish the silver before guests arrived. I stared at the message while my husband, Ethan, disappeared through airport security. 10 minutes earlier, I'd kissed him goodbye. He smiled, pulled me close, and whispered against my forehead, 3 days. I'll be back before you even miss me. I laughed. I'll miss you in 3 hours. He kissed me one last time. I love you. I love you too. Then he picked up his carry-on, waved once, and vanished into the crowd heading toward gate C18. Everything about that goodbye had felt normal. Perfect even. Until Marta's text arrived. I immediately called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. A knot formed in my stomach. Marta always answered. Always. I walked out of the terminal into the humid July heat. The parking garage shimmered in the afternoon sun. My silver SUV sat exactly where I'd left it. I unlocked it but couldn't bring myself to get inside. Instead, I called Ethan. His phone rang twice before going to voicemail. Right. Airplane mode. I almost laughed at myself. You're overreacting, I whispered. Maybe Marta had seen a gas leak. Maybe a pipe had burst. Maybe she'd caught someone trying to break in. There were 100 reasonable explanations. So why did my hands keep shaking? Another vibration. This time it wasn't a text. It was a photo. Sent by Marta. No caption. Just one picture. The image was blurry, as if she'd taken it in a hurry. But I recognized my own living room immediately. The white sectional sofa. The blue ceramic vase I'd bought in Italy. The fireplace. And standing near the staircase. A man. His back was turned toward the camera. Tall. Dark jacket. Broad shoulders. He looked familiar. Before I could zoom in, another text appeared. They're still inside. My heart slammed against my ribs. There? Who was they? I called Marta again. Nothing. Then, the messages stopped. Instead of driving home, I pulled into a coffee shop 5 minutes from the airport. I parked where I could see the entrance and locked every door. My pulse wouldn't slow down. I texted Marta. What's happening? Are you okay? Who is in my house? No reply. I looked back at the photo. Something caught my attention. The grandfather clock. It read 2:17. I glanced at my dashboard clock. 2:23. The photo had been taken only minutes earlier. Whoever was inside my house could still be there. I called the police. The dispatcher listened patiently. So, someone texted you saying not to go home? Yes. And they sent you a photo of someone inside your residence? Yes. Do you know who the individual is? No. Is anyone supposed to be at your home? My husband just left for Chicago. Anyone else? No. We'll send an officer to check the property. Relief washed over me. Finally, someone else could figure this out. 28 agonizing minutes later, an officer called. Mrs. Carter? Yes. We've checked the residence. And no signs of forced entry. What about the people inside? We didn't find anyone. What? The home appears secure. Did you check every room? Yes. What about the basement? Yes. The garage? Yes. There was someone there. Ma'am, I understand you're concerned, but there's no evidence anyone is currently inside. I stared through the windshield. None. How is that possible? I almost drove home anyway. Almost. Instead, instinct told me to wait. Marta wasn't irrational. If she'd risked sending those messages, something had frightened her. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Marta! Silence. I could hear breathing. Heavy. Uneven. Marta! A whisper. They know. What? They know I warned you. Marta, where are you? I can't talk. Who's with you? They're looking for me. Ice flooded my veins. Marta, call the police. I tried. What happened? They're friends with him. What do you mean? Static interrupted her voice. Then one sentence came through clearly. It's not your husband you should be afraid of. The call disconnected. I sat frozen. Not my husband. Then who? Because if there was one person in this world I trusted completely, it was Ethan. We'd been married 8 years. He remembered every anniversary. He brought me flowers for no reason. He never raised his voice. When my mother died, he'd slept beside me every night for 2 months because I couldn't bear waking up alone. He wasn't perfect. Nobody was. But dangerous. Impossible. The first time I met Ethan had been in a bookstore. I'd reached for the same novel. He smiled. You take it. No, you saw it first. I've already read it. Liar. He laughed. You caught me. That smile had changed my life. Over the next year, he became my safest place. Everyone adored him. My father called him the son I never had. Our neighbors loved him. Even Marta often said, your husband is one of the good ones. So why had she just implied otherwise? By 6 that evening, I couldn't stand waiting any longer. The police had cleared the house. The silence from Marta was unbearable. I drove home. Every tree, lining our street, suddenly looked sinister. Every parked car seemed suspicious. Our 2-story colonial looked exactly as it always had. White shutters, fresh-cut lawn, American flag hanging beside the porch. Peaceful. Normal. Too normal. I unlocked the front door. Hello. Nothing. The air conditioning hummed softly. No broken windows. No overturned furniture. No signs of anyone. The police had been right. Or had they? Something smelled different. Not bad. Just different. Cologne. A sharp cedar scent. Ethan wore citrus. This wasn't his. I followed the smell into the living room. Gone. Kitchen. Gone. Hallway. Stronger. I stopped outside Ethan's home office. The door was slightly open. Odd. He always closed it. Inside, everything appeared untouched. Laptop. Desk. Bookshelves. Family photos. Then I noticed one tiny detail. His desk drawer. Half an inch open. Ethan was obsessive about organization. Drawers stayed closed. Always. I pulled it open. Inside sat a black leather notebook I'd never seen before. No label. No initials. Just leather. I hesitated before opening it. The first pages were blank. Then, names. Dozens of names. Addresses. Dates. Amounts of money. Some entries had check marks. Others had red circles. At the bottom of one page, my name, Emily Carter. Next to it was today's date. And beneath it, 3 p.m. I looked at the wall clock. It read 6:18. Whatever had been planned for 3 o'clock had already happened. A floorboard creaked upstairs. I froze. Someone was inside. I slowly backed toward the hallway. My phone trembled in my hand as I dialed 911 again. Another creak. This time closer. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. I whispered into the phone. Someone's in my house. The dispatcher asked for my address. Then, a familiar voice drifted down from upstairs. Emily! I knew that voice. My blood ran cold, because it didn't belong to my husband. It belonged to my brother, Daniel, the same brother I'd buried 3 years ago. For a moment, my brain refused to process what I'd heard. My brother's voice. It was impossible. Daniel had died 3 years earlier in a boating accident on Lake Murray. I had stood beside his casket. I had watched it lowered into the ground while my mother collapsed into my father's arms. I had touched the polished wood one last time before they closed it forever. I knew he was dead, so why had I just heard him say my name? The 911 dispatcher was still speaking. Ma'am, are you there? I couldn't answer. Another floorboard creaked. Then the voice came again. Emily, don't scream. Every instinct told me to run. Instead, I stood rooted to the hardwood floor, staring at the staircase. A man slowly stepped into view. He looked older. His dark hair had streaks of gray that hadn't been there before. He had a beard now. There was a long scar running from his left temple to his jawline. But the eyes, those unmistakable green eyes, belonged to my brother. I gasped. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. Daniel! He raised both hands. I know. No. Tears blurred my vision. No, you're dead. I know what you were told. I shook my head violently. I buried you. He swallowed. You buried an empty coffin. I couldn't breathe. Nothing in the last 4 hours. Not Marta's warning, not the strange notebook, not the mysterious man in my living room compared to this. My brother took one careful step closer. I need you to listen. Stay back. His face crumpled. I don't have much time. I watched them bury you. They wanted you to. What are you talking about? He glanced nervously toward the front windows. Lock the door. What? Emily. His voice dropped to a whisper. They're watching the house. A chill crawled across my skin. I hurried to the front door and turned the deadbolt. Then every window. Every curtain. By the time I returned to the living room, Daniel had already picked up my phone. The police are coming. I called them. Good. He ended the call before the dispatcher could reconnect. What are you doing? We can't let them find me. Them. The people who faked my death. I stared at him. You sound insane. I know. He nodded sadly. I sounded insane to myself for the first 6 months. We sat across from each other in silence. I kept searching his face for proof. A birthmark behind his ear. Still there. The tiny crooked finger he'd broken playing baseball when we were kids. Still crooked. The scar on his chin from falling off his bicycle at 11. Still there. It was him. Somehow. It was really him. I don't understand. He leaned forward. You remember the construction company I worked for? Turner Infrastructure. It wasn't just a construction company. What do you mean? It was laundering money. I blinked. What? They used fake contracts to move millions through shell companies. I laughed nervously. No. I discovered it by accident. Daniel. They found out. He stood and walked toward the kitchen window. I was supposed to disappear. You mean witness protection? I wish. What then? They gave me 2 choices. He looked directly at me. Die for real. Or disappear forever. I felt sick. So you chose to let us think you were dead? I didn't choose. His voice cracked. I begged them to tell you. Who? The FBI. I frowned. The FBI. They said if anyone knew I was alive, I'd become a target. So for 3 years, I watched your life from a distance. You watched me. I attended Mom's funeral. I froze. What? You couldn't see me. I was there. My knees nearly gave out. When you gave your speech, his eyes filled with tears. I almost walked out. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to slap him. I wanted answers. Instead, I asked the one question that mattered most. Why are you here now? His expression darkened. Because you're in danger. My stomach tightened. From who? He hesitated, then looked toward Ethan's office. Your husband. I stood so quickly my chair tipped backward. Stop. I'm serious. No. He isn't who you think he is. Enough. He knew my death wasn't real. Liar. He helped hide me. I stared. No. He worked with the same people. I shook my head. No. He didn't tell you because they threatened both of us. You're lying. I wish I was. The front door suddenly rattled. Someone was trying the handle. Daniel's entire body stiffened. They're early. My pulse exploded. Who? He motioned for silence. Another rattle. Then, knock, knock, knock. Mrs. Carter. A man's voice. Police department. Daniel whispered. Don't answer. I looked toward the door. They're here because I called. No. He grabbed my wrist. Look through the peephole. I did. 2 officers stood outside. Perfectly normal. Uniforms. Badges. Patrol car. Everything looked legitimate. I told you. Daniel shook his head. Look at the patrol car. I focused. Something felt wrong. Then I saw it. There was no department logo on the passenger door. Just plain white paint. My heart skipped. That's not. No. Daniel whispered. It's not a police car. The knocking grew louder. Mrs. Carter? We know you're inside. Daniel pulled me toward the hallway. Basement. What? Now. We hurried downstairs, just as someone slammed against the front door. The deadbolt groaned. Another impact. Crack. The frame splintered. They're breaking in. Daniel pushed aside an old storage shelf. Behind it, a narrow steel door I'd never seen before. What is this? Ethan built it. I stared. My husband. He told you it was for plumbing access. I don't remember that. Because he never wanted you asking questions. The steel door opened into a narrow concrete tunnel. Cold air rushed upward. Move! We hurried inside. Daniel shut the door behind us, just as footsteps thundered across the kitchen upstairs. Voices echoed faintly. Clear downstairs. They couldn't have gone far. They're here somewhere. I pressed both hands over my mouth. Daniel switched on a tiny flashlight. The tunnel stretched beneath the property. Where does this go? The guest house behind the woods. We don't own a guest house. He looked at me. No. But Ethan does. We walked in silence. Every few seconds I heard muffled footsteps overhead. The tunnel smelled damp and earthy. After what felt like forever, we reached a metal ladder. Daniel climbed first. He pushed open another hatch. Fresh evening air flooded inside. We emerged behind a small abandoned cottage hidden deep within the trees. I've lived here. I stared. For how long? Whenever I needed to watch the house. You've been this close. Almost every week. Tears rolled down my face. You watched me and never came home. I couldn't. Inside the cottage were maps, photos, computers, documents covering every wall. My house, my car, my office, security camera images, even pictures of Ethan. What is this? My investigation. He pointed to dozens of photographs. Ethan meets different people every Thursday. Another board. These accounts received money after every meeting. Another. These people disappeared. I felt dizzy. No. Then I noticed one photograph. It showed Ethan hugging a woman outside a hotel. Not romantically. Comfortingly. The woman looked terrified. Who's she? Daniel's face hardened. Your previous housekeeper. I frowned. Previous? The one before Marta. Linda. He nodded. I remember her. You were told she retired. She did. No. Daniel handed me another photo. Linda. Entering a courthouse. Then another. Linda speaking with federal agents. Another. Linda crying. What happened? She tried to expose Ethan. My voice barely existed. And Daniel looked away. She disappeared. The room suddenly filled with the sound of buzzing. One of Daniel's monitors lit up. A live security camera. My house. 3 black SUVs had arrived. Men in suits surrounded the property. One stepped out. I knew him instantly. Richard Holloway. Ethan's boss. The CEO of the logistics company where Ethan worked. Or so I believed. Richard calmly walked inside my house. 5 minutes later, he walked back out, holding the black leather notebook I'd found. Daniel whispered, They found it. What's inside? The names of everyone they've targeted. My name was in there. I know. Why? He looked me directly in the eyes. Because tomorrow, they plan to make you disappear too. My entire body went numb. But before I could ask another question, the cottage door creaked open. Daniel spun around. Someone was already inside, standing in the shadows. A woman, holding a pistol. She slowly stepped into the light. I recognized her instantly. Marta. But instead of looking relieved to see us, she pointed the gun directly at my chest. And with tears running down her face, she whispered, I'm so sorry, Emily. They found my daughter. For a second, nobody moved. Marta's hands were trembling so violently that the barrel of the pistol shook with them. Tears streamed down her face, but she never lowered the weapon. Daniel slowly raised his hands. Marta! Don't! Her voice cracked. Please don't make this harder. I stared at her. This was the woman who had folded my laundry, baked my birthday cake every year, and insisted on making my grandmother's soup whenever I was sick. She looked completely broken. Marta! I whispered. What's happening? She closed her eyes. They have Sophia. Her daughter. 20-year-old Sophia was in nursing school. I'd met her several times. I'd even helped pay for one semester after Marta's husband died. They said, Marta struggled to breathe. They said if I didn't bring you to them, they'd kill her. The room fell silent. Daniel glanced toward me without moving his head. She's buying time. Marta caught it. No, Daniel. Don't. You don't want to do this. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. She let out a bitter laugh. Easy for you to say. You've already lost everything. That sentence hit harder than she intended. Daniel didn't answer. His face simply fell. I took one careful step toward Marta. You texted me. Yes. You warned me. I thought I could get you away before they realized I'd seen what happened. What did you see? She swallowed. I saw Richard and Ethan arguing. My heart skipped. They weren't arguing about money. She looked directly at me. They were arguing about you. A cold wave spread through my chest. Ethan kept saying, "There has to be another way." Daniel frowned. "He said that." "Yes." "Are you sure?" "I was in the hallway." She nodded firmly. I heard every word. For the first time since this nightmare began, something didn't fit. If Ethan wanted me dead, why argue against it? A sharp electronic beep echoed through the cottage. Daniel rushed to one of his monitors. They found the tunnel. The security camera showed 2 men lifting the hidden hatch beneath my basement. Another camera displayed Richard calmly giving instructions. "They're splitting up," Daniel said. "How long?" "Maybe 5 minutes." Marta lowered the gun. "I'm sorry." She tossed it onto a nearby table. "I can't do this." I rushed forward and hugged her. She collapsed against me, sobbing. "I try to protect you." "I know. They'll kill Sophia. We'll get her back." Daniel was already packing files into a weathered backpack. "We don't have time." He unplugged 3 hard drives. "They can't get these." "What are they?" "Everything." "What everything?" "The financial records. The recordings. The witness list. The proof." He zipped the bag shut. "This is what Richard has been hunting for." We slipped out the back of the cottage just as headlights cut through the trees. Black SUVs. Daniel pointed toward a narrow hiking trail. "This way." The forest was dense enough to swallow us whole. Branches slapped against my face as we ran. Behind us came shouting. "They're here. Spread out." Flashlights danced through the trees. Dogs barked somewhere in the distance. I was already out of breath. "I can't." "You have to," Daniel said. "If they catch us, it's over." We reached an abandoned fire road nearly 20 minutes later. An old pickup truck sat hidden beneath a camouflage tarp. Daniel pulled it away. "You've had this here the whole time." He nodded. "I've learned not to rely on anyone." The engine roared to life. For the first time all day, I felt a tiny flicker of hope, until my phone rang. "Ethan." His name lit up the screen. Daniel stared at it. "Don't answer." But I already had. "Emily." His voice sounded panicked. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. "Emily, please." "You lied to me." Silence. Then, "I know." Tears welled in my eyes. "My brother is alive." Another silence. "I know." The words hit like a punch. "You knew." "Yes." "For 3 years." "Yes." "You let me grieve him." "I had no choice." I laughed through tears. "Everyone keeps saying that." "Listen to me." "No." "Emily." His voice cracked in a way I'd never heard before. "If Richard finds you." "He already did." "What?" "They broke into our house." A sharp intake of breath. "Damn it." He wasn't surprised. He sounded afraid. "Tell me the truth." "I will." "Everything." "You won't like it." "I already don't." He exhaled slowly. "The business I work for isn't really a logistics company. I figured that much out. They move money. And people. They move evidence. Witnesses. Sometimes criminals." I closed my eyes. "So you're one of them?" "No." "I was." My heart sank. "What changed?" "You. I met you by accident." His voice was almost a whisper now. "The bookstore." "Yes." "I wasn't supposed to be there." "What?" "I was following someone." The memory shattered. The romantic story we'd told everyone for years had been a lie. "You were investigating me?" "No." "Then who?" "Your brother." I looked at Daniel. His face confirmed it. "Ethan." I whispered. "Did you fake Daniel's death?" "No." "I helped him disappear." "Why?" "Because Richard ordered his execution." My grip tightened around the phone. I couldn't let that happen. "So instead, you convinced the FBI to hide him." "It wasn't just me." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because Richard has people everywhere." His breathing became uneven. "If he ever believed you knew Daniel was alive, he would have killed you." Daniel finally spoke. Loudspeaker. I pressed the button. "Ethan." Daniel's voice filled the truck. "I should have trusted you." There was a long silence. "I know. I was wrong." "I know. You actually saved my life." I couldn't save all of it. None of us spoke. 3 years of anger, misunderstanding, and guilt hung in the air. Then Ethan said something that changed everything. Richard isn't after Emily because of Daniel. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? Ask her about her father. I froze. My father died 12 years ago. No. What? He was murdered. The truck nearly swerved off the road. What did you say? Your father found Richard's first laundering operation. No. He kept evidence. I would have known. He hid it. Where? I don't know. Richard thinks you do. Daniel slowly turned toward me. That's why your name was in the notebook. I could barely breathe. They think I have something. Yes. But I don't. They don't believe that. Marta suddenly gasped. I know. We all looked at her. Your father. She covered her mouth. He used to clean the grandfather clock every Sunday. So, he never let anyone touch it. The grandfather clock. The same one visible in Marta's first photo. The same one I'd noticed without thinking. Daniel looked at me. We're going back. No. I couldn't believe I was saying it. They're waiting there. Daniel smiled grimly. Exactly. They'll never expect us to walk back into the trap. Night had fully fallen by the time we reached the edge of our neighborhood. Daniel parked 2 streets away. The house was dark. Too dark. Richard's men were gone. Or hiding. We crossed 3 backyards before slipping through the rear gate. The kitchen window was broken from the earlier break-in. Inside, the house felt abandoned. Every drawer had been emptied. Cushions slashed. Pictures ripped from walls. They had searched everything. Except the grandfather clock. It still stood proudly in the corner. Untouched. Daniel examined it. There, behind the pendulum, was a tiny brass screw. He twisted it. A hidden panel popped open. Inside lay a faded manila envelope. My hands shook as I pulled it free. Across the front, in my father's handwriting, were 6 words. For Emily, if anything happens. Before I could open it, the lights throughout the house suddenly snapped on. A slow clap echoed from the dining room. Richard Holloway stepped into view. Perfectly dressed. Calm. Smiling. He wasn't alone. 6 armed men surrounded us. Richard's eyes settled on the envelope in my hands. I've been looking for that. He smiled wider. For 12 years. Then another voice came from behind him. I told you she would find it. I felt my world stop spinning. Standing beside Richard, alive, unhurt, was Ethan. He looked straight into my eyes and said quietly, I'm sorry. Richard laughed. I always did admire your acting, Ethan. I couldn't tell anymore whether my husband had come to save me or betray me. The envelope slipped from my fingers. It landed on the hardwood floor with a soft thud. No one moved. Richard Holloway smiled like a man who had already won. Beside him, Ethan stood perfectly still. His face was unreadable. For 8 years, I had been able to tell exactly what he was thinking from the smallest change in his expression. Now, I couldn't read him at all. My chest felt hollow. Was any of it real? I whispered. Ethan looked at me. Every trace of confidence disappeared from his face. Every single day. Richard laughed. See, even now he can't stop performing. One of Richard's men stepped forward and picked up the envelope. Richard held out his hand. The man gave it to him. Richard ran a finger across my father's handwriting. 12 years. He smiled. 12 years of searching. He looked at me almost fondly. Your father was a very stubborn man. I clenched my fists. You killed him. Richard didn't even deny it. He forced my hand. My vision blurred with anger. He was an honest accountant. He was an obstacle. Richard spoke as if discussing the weather. He discovered transactions he wasn't supposed to see. Daniel took one careful step forward. You murdered him. I gave him an opportunity to cooperate. You murdered him. Richard sighed. Morality is such a luxury. He tucked the envelope inside his jacket. Now, this unpleasant chapter can finally end. One of the armed men grabbed my arm. Another aimed his pistol at Daniel. Marta stood frozen. Richard nodded toward Ethan. You know what to do. For one horrible second, I believed he would. Ethan slowly walked toward me. Every step felt like another piece of my heart breaking. He stopped inches away. I'm sorry. Then, he spun around. His elbow smashed into the guard behind him. The man's gun clattered across the floor. Now! Ethan shouted. Everything exploded into chaos. Daniel tackled the closest gunman. Marta threw a heavy ceramic vase at another. It shattered against his shoulder. I dove for the fallen pistol. Someone grabbed my ankle. I kicked backward as hard as I could. A man cried out. The gun slid across the floor. Ethan reached it first. He fired once. Not at Richard. At the chandelier. Glass rained through the room. The lights burst. The house went dark. Only moonlight poured through the broken kitchen window. Run! Ethan yelled. We sprinted through the kitchen. Bullets tore through cabinets behind us. Wood splintered. Glass exploded. Richard shouted orders. Don't let them leave! We burst into the backyard. Daniel led us toward the woods. Halfway across the lawn, Ethan grabbed my hand. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. I yanked my hand away. You don't get to say that now. I know. You let me mourn my brother. I saved his life. You lied every day. I did. His voice cracked. And I'll regret that until I die. For the first time, I believed him. We barely reached the tree line before headlights surrounded the property. More black SUVs. My stomach dropped. They have us. Daniel frowned. No. Blue lights. Red lights. Dozens of them. Police cruisers. Federal vehicles. Black SUVs with government plates. Agents poured into the yard from every direction. Loudspeaker. A commanding voice echoed through the night. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. Richard's men froze. Then gunfire erupted. Not from the agents. From Richard's own people trying to escape. The woods echoed with shouting. Dogs barked. Flashbangs exploded. The night became pure chaos. Ethan grabbed my shoulders. Stay down. He pushed me behind a fallen oak. An instant later, a bullet struck the tree, exactly where my head had been. I stared at him. You. I wasn't letting them hurt you. Before I could answer, Richard appeared 20 yards away. His expensive suit was torn. The envelope was still tucked inside his jacket. He saw us. Our eyes met. Then he ran. Daniel took off after him. No! I chased after Daniel. Ethan followed. Richard knew the woods well. He crossed the creek, jumped a fallen log, slid down a steep embankment. We weren't far behind. Finally, he reached an abandoned boat dock. There was nowhere else to go. The river stretched behind him. Daniel pointed a pistol. It's over. Richard laughed. You think so? He pulled the envelope from his jacket. If I can't have it. He reached for a lighter. Ethan fired. The lighter flew into the river. Richard looked stunned. You always were sentimental. He lunged toward Ethan. The two men crashed onto the dock. Punches, elbows, wood cracked beneath them. I had never seen Ethan fight before. Not like this. Richard was older, but ruthless. He drove Ethan backward. The edge of the dock splintered. Both men nearly fell into the river. Daniel started forward. Ethan shouted, No! Richard suddenly pulled a hidden knife. My heart stopped. The blade flashed toward Ethan. Without thinking, I grabbed the nearest object I could find. An old iron mooring hook. I swung with everything I had. It struck Richard across the wrist. The knife flew away. He stumbled backward. The rotten dock gave way beneath him. For one brief second, Richard reached toward us. Then the wood collapsed. He disappeared into the dark river below. The current swallowed him. No one ever saw him again. Silence. Only the sound of rushing water remained. I dropped the iron hook. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ethan slowly stood. Blood ran from a cut above his eyebrow. He looked at me. You saved my life. I couldn't answer, because I still didn't know whether I wanted to. The next 48 hours felt unreal. The FBI seized every company Richard controlled. The logistics business turned out to be an international criminal network that had been operating for nearly 20 years. Daniel's evidence, the hard drives, the recordings, the financial records, was enough to expose dozens of corrupt officials and executives. Marta's daughter, Sophia, was found alive in a warehouse less than 60 miles away. When Marta saw her again, they held each other for nearly 10 minutes without speaking. I cried watching them. Then came the hardest conversation of my life. Ethan and I sat in a small interview room after giving our statements. For the first time since the airport, we were alone. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally I asked, When were you going to tell me? He looked down. When it was finally safe. And if it never became safe? His silence answered the question. I nodded slowly. I loved you. He looked up immediately. I still love you. I know. And everything between us was real. I believed him. That was the problem. The love had been real. The lies had been real too. Months passed. Daniel entered an official witness protection transition before finally being allowed to reclaim his identity. The day he walked into our mother's old house through the front door, our aunt fainted, then laughed, then cried. It felt like getting part of my family back from the dead. Marta never returned to working as my housekeeper. Instead, we became friends. Real friends. She opened a small bakery with Sophia. Every Saturday, I stopped by for coffee and whatever pastry she decided to experiment with that week. For the first time in years, she smiled without fear. As for Ethan, he accepted responsibility for every crime he had committed before he met me. He cooperated fully with federal prosecutors. His testimony helped dismantle what remained of Richard's organization. Because of that cooperation, and because investigators confirmed he had secretly protected witnesses, including Daniel, his sentence was far lighter than anyone expected. Still, a prison sentence is a prison sentence. The day I visited him before he was transferred, we sat across from each other separated by thick glass. He smiled sadly. You look good. So do you. I definitely don't. I laughed despite myself. For a few seconds, it felt like the man from the bookstore had returned. I don't expect forgiveness, he said quietly. I know. I only wanted you to know. Loving you was the only honest thing I ever did. Tears filled my eyes. I believe you. And that's enough. A year later, I stood outside the old airport terminal where all of this had begun. Planes still lifted into the bright blue sky. Family still hugged goodbye. Business travelers still rushed toward security. Life had continued, even when mine had fallen apart. I thought back to that afternoon. The kiss. The text. Don't go home. 3 words had saved my life. If Marta had hesitated, if I'd ignored her message, if I'd driven straight home, I would never have learned the truth about my father. I never would have seen my brother again. I never would have uncovered the lies that had hidden beneath my own roof. I looked at the sky as another plane disappeared into the clouds. Sometimes the people who betray you are the ones you trust the most. Sometimes the people who disappear are the ones fighting hardest to protect you. And sometimes, the hardest truth isn't discovering that someone lied to you. It's discovering that they lied because, in the only way they knew how, they were trying to keep you alive. I got into my car, started the engine, and this time, when I drove home, I finally knew I was going to a place that truly belonged to me.